That morning, the office buzzed with low whispers, like a swarm of bees hiding behind polite smiles. Ngozi had come in beside Minjae, as always, helping him. But the more she moved around the office, the sharper the stares became. A group of junior associates near the water dispenser giggled. She's shameless, always hovering around attorney Minjae. She's obviously chasing him. Look how desperate she looks. Exactly. Attorney Minjae never pays attention to women, but she keeps following him around. Of course, she wants to climb up fast. Can't you see how desperate she looks? Her fingers tightened around the files. Each cruel word was like a weight pressing her chest, but she forced herself to walk on, her chin slightly lowered. She told herself to ignore it. She told herself it didn't matter. But deep inside, it hurt. From his glass office, Min Jae had seen everything. The way her steps faltered. The way she swallowed hard as though holding back tears. His jaw tightened. Enough was enough. Without warning, he stepped out, his presence silencing the entire floor. Everyone meeting room. Now, the lawyers and secretary scrambled inside, their curiosity sparking like wildfire. Ngozi sat at the back, trying to shrink into her seat, wishing the ground would swallow her. Minjae stood at the front, tall and unyielding, his voice sharp but steady. I've heard enough of the gossip circling in this office, he began, scanning every face. And I'll say this once so it never comes up again. The room held its breath. She is not chasing me, he declared, pointing directly at Ngozi. His next words made her heart leap. She is my wife, and if anyone is pursuing someone here, it's me pursuing her heart, not the other way around. Gasps filled the room. Some jaws dropped, others exchanged wide-eyed glances. Ngozi's pulse raced. Her eyes darted to him, searching his face. He wasn't joking. He wasn't embarrassed. He said it like a man who meant every word. For the first time since she joined the firm, the gossip ended. Not because people lost interest, but because Minjae had drawn a line no one dared cross. And sitting there, stunned, Ngozi realized something she couldn't deny anymore. Her heart was no longer just pretending. The next morning, the law firm felt different. The whispers, the lingering stares, the giggles at the water dispenser, all gone. Minjae's bold announcement had silenced the gossip like a judge's gavel ending chaos in a courtroom. For the first time, Ngozi walked through the office without that tight knot of embarrassment in her chest. She could breathe, she could focus, and most importantly, she could work. Inside Minjae's office, the energy was lighter. He no longer hovered with that teasing smirk, no longer played childish games to annoy her. Instead, he leaned forward across his desk, explaining legal strategies with the patience of a mentor and the precision of a seasoned lawyer. See, Ngozi, he said, pointing at a case file, the key isn't only in the argument, it's in anticipating the opposition. If you prepare for their strongest point, you can dismantle it before they even speak. She nodded, scribbling furiously in her notebook. Her stubbornness softened into admiration as she watched him. Minjae wasn't just brilliant in court. He was a teacher in the quiet corners of their office. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere between them grew professional yet warm. They debated cases side by side, sometimes even playfully arguing over strategies. With him guiding her, she stopped seeing herself as the rookie lawyer who lost too many cases. She was becoming sharper, stronger, more confident. One afternoon, after a long session preparing for a case, she looked at him with genuine gratitude. You know, she said softly, I'm learning more with you than I ever thought possible. He leaned back in his chair, a rare softness in his eyes. That's because I'm not just teaching you to win cases, Ngozi. I'm teaching you to fight smart, so you'll never lose yourself in the fight. Her heart skipped. It wasn't just his words, it was the way he said them, like he cared about her, not just her career. And for the first time, Ngozi realized she wasn't only learning to be a better lawyer. She was also learning how easy it was to fall for Minjae, piece by piece, without even noticing. It was early morning. The sun was barely up, its light filtering weakly through the curtains as Ngozi sipped her tea, still half drowsy. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table. The moment she saw the caller ID, her heart raced. It was the woman from the domestic violence case. Ngozi, please, the woman's voice cracked. trembling through the speaker. He's done it again. He beat me badly this time. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Ngozi's chest tightened. She grabbed her bag immediately, ready to rush out. But before she could slip on her shoes, Min-jae appeared in the hallway, his sharp gaze cutting through her panic. Where are you going? He asked firmly. I have to help her, Ngozi replied, her voice fierce but shaky. She's hurt. She needs me. Min-jae stepped closer, blocking the door. Ngozi, you can't just run into danger again. You remember last time? You almost got yourself killed. His tone was low but steady, protective. I can't just do nothing, she shot back, her eyes blazing. You're not doing nothing, he said. He pulled out his phone, his voice crisp as he dialed. We're calling the police. Right now. Minutes later, they were both in the car, trailing behind the authorities as they sped to the woman's house. By the time they arrived, flashing red and blue lights painted the street. Officers were already dragging the husband out in handcuffs, his face twisted with fury. The woman clung to Ngozi, sobbing into her shoulder. Thank you, thank you. I thought no one would believe me. Ngozi stroked her back gently, whispering, You're safe now. It's over. From a few steps away, Min-jae watched the scene. His jaw unclenched, relief softening his features. He had been right to stop her from rushing in alone, but seeing her compassion up close, the fire in her eyes, the way she fought for others, made his chest ache with admiration. Later, as they drove back, silence filled the car. Finally, Min-jae glanced at her and said softly, This is why you'll be a great lawyer, Ngozi. Not just because you fight, but because you care. Her hand froze on her lap, heart beating fast. She looked out the window, hiding the blush rising on her cheeks. For once, she didn't argue. She just smiled faintly to herself, knowing he saw her more clearly than she ever realized. The courtroom buzzed with low murmurs as the domestic violence case began. Ngozi stood tall at the front, her black lawyer's robe flowing behind her, her afro puff tied neatly, her eyes sharp with determination. For the first time, she wasn't nervous. This case wasn't just about winning, it was personal. She looked at the battered woman sitting quietly in the gallery, then at the smug husband seated with his defense attorney. Her jaw tightened. Min-jae, seated a few rows back, watched in silence. He had guided her, yes, but today was her battlefield. He wasn't here to fight for her. He was here to see her fight for herself. Ngozi's voice rang through the courtroom with controlled passion. No woman deserves to live in fear within her own home. No man has the right to turn love into violence. Today, this court must decide whether justice will remain silent or speak for the voiceless. She presented the bruised photographs, the hospital records, the neighbor's testimony. Every word, every piece of evidence was deliberate, calculated. She had learned from Min-jae, but her heart gave her a fire that was entirely her own. The defense lawyer tried to twist the story, painting the wife as unstable. Ngozi didn't flinch. She countered every point with precision, dismantling their argument piece by piece. By the time she gave her closing statement, the courtroom was silent, hanging onto her every word. Even the judge seemed moved by the conviction in her voice. Finally, the verdict came. The defendant is found guilty of domestic abuse, sentenced to 5 years in prison. Gasps echoed. The woman broke down in tears, covering her face as relief washed over her. Ngozi's lips curved into the smallest, proudest smile. She had done it not just for the client, but for every woman silenced by fear. From the back, Min-jae clapped softly, the only one bold enough to do it first. When Ngozi turned, their eyes met. He was smiling, not the teasing grin she was used to, but a look of quiet pride, admiration, and something deeper. Ngozi's heart swelled. For once, she wasn't just happy for the win. She was happy because he had seen her win. The news of Ngozi's victory spread quickly through the firm. For the first time, her colleagues no longer looked at her as just the boss's wife, but as a sharp-minded lawyer who could hold her ground in court. Everywhere she walked, there were nods of respect and quiet whispers of admiration. Ngozi felt lighter, more confident. She was finally building her own name, step by step. In the office, Min-jae watched her from his glass-walled office as she worked side by side with other associates, giving suggestions and reviewing documents. There was a glow in her that no gossip could ever dim. He smiled to himself, thinking how lucky he was, not just because she was his wife, but because she was becoming the kind of lawyer who inspired others. That night, as they packed up, Min-jae turned to her and said softly, "Ngozi, today, you weren't just amazing in court. You showed everyone who you really are. And I'm proud to stand beside you." Her heart skipped at his words, and for the first time, she felt fully seen, not as the outsider who struggled to belong, but as a woman who had carved her place. The morning sun spilled through the tall glass windows of the law office as Ngozi and Min-jae stepped out together, their files neatly tucked under their arms. It was another day, another client, but something about the way they now worked side by side made Ngozi's steps lighter. They entered a cozy but elegant cafe, where their new client, Mrs. Han, waited for them. She was a stylish woman in her early 40s, dressed in a designer blouse and pearls, her perfume so strong it seemed to announce her presence before her smile did. "Ah, Attorney Lee," Mrs. Han said warmly, her eyes lighting up the moment she saw Min-jae. "You look even more handsome in person than in the magazines." Ngozi froze for a second, surprised by the overly personal tone. She quickly set down her notebook, ready to start the consultation. But Mrs. Han's gaze barely flickered to her before returning to Min-jae. As the introductions passed, Mrs. Han leaned forward, her manicured hand brushing lightly across Min-jae's wrist as she spoke. "My husband is impossible," she said with a dramatic sigh. "Cheating, lying. But seeing you today makes me feel like there are still real men in this world." Ngozi felt her jaw tighten. She forced a professional smile and tried to redirect the conversation back to the legal matter. "Mrs. Han, can you share any evidence of the infidelity? We'll need—" "Oh dear," Mrs. Han interrupted with a laugh, waving her off. "Why don't you give us a moment? I'd like to speak privately with Attorney Lee. Surely you don't mind?" For the first time, Ngozi's composure cracked. Heat rose to her cheeks, not just from the insult of being dismissed, but from the woman's shameless attempt to flirt with Min-jae right in front of her. Her pen stilled on the page, and her heart hammered in her chest. Min-jae, however, leaned back coolly, his sharp eyes narrowing just slightly. He gave a calm but firm smile. "Mrs. Han, Attorney Ngozi is not just my colleague," he said. "She's my partner. If you want me to represent you, you'll need to respect her as much as you respect me." The woman blinked, caught off guard, but quickly laughed it off. Still, her eyes lingered far too long on Min-jae's face, and Ngozi could feel the unspoken tension tightening around the table. For the rest of the meeting, Ngozi spoke less than usual, but inside, a storm was brewing, one she wasn't sure she wanted Min-jae to notice. When the meeting ended, Mrs. Han leaned forward with a confident smile and slid her business card across the table to Min-jae. "Call me directly. I prefer personal contact," she said, her gaze lingering far too long. Ngozi felt her stomach twist, but she kept her face professional. Min-jae only gave a polite nod, slipping the card into his folder without expression. As they left the cafe, Ngozi walked a few steps ahead, her jaw tight. Min-jae noticed but didn't comment. Instead, he said softly, "Let's meet her husband before we form a conclusion. There's always another side." Later that afternoon, they sat across from Mr. Han in his spacious office. Unlike his wife's polished confidence, he looked tired, almost broken. He sighed as he showed them phone records, late-night messages, and even photos. "My wife," he said bitterly. "She's the one who betrayed me. I've been the fool all along." Ngozi's eyes widened. Her mind replayed Mrs. Han's flirtations with Min-jae, the dismissive way she had spoken to her. Suddenly, the puzzle made sense. Min-jae's expression darkened, but his voice stayed calm. "I understand. Thank you for being honest with us." When they left the building, Min-jae didn't waste a second. He drove straight back to the cafe where Mrs. Han was waiting, her smile returning the moment she saw him. "Did you miss me already?" she teased, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. But this time, Min-jae's eyes were cold. He laid her card on the table between them. "I don't take cases built on lies," he said firmly. "Find another lawyer." Before she could respond, he turned and walked out. Ngozi followed closely, her heart racing. Outside, the wind was sharp, but the weight in her chest felt strangely lighter. For the first time, she looked at Min-jae not just as a mentor or boss, but as a man who stood for something deeper. And in that moment, she couldn't stop the small, proud smile tugging at her lips. A few days later, it started with whispers. At first, Ngozi thought they were just the usual office murmurs that had followed her and Min-jae from the day they were paired together. But this time, the whispers carried laughter. Nervous laughter. Malicious laughter. By noon, the entire firm was buzzing. Screens lit up with a tabloid article. Star lawyer Min-jae caught an affair with married client. Attached to it was a photo, blurry, but damning. Mrs. Han had staged it well. Leaning toward him in the cafe, smiling with her hand brushing his, while the angle made it seem as though he was returning the gesture. The news spread like wildfire. By the next morning, the firm was buzzing with laughter and whispers. Did you see the article? They said Min-jae is having an affair with his client. Ah, so that's how he wins cases. On everyone's phone was the same tabloid headline. Top lawyer Min-jae in secret affair with married client. Beside it, a photo of him at a cafe with Mrs. Han. The angle made it look as if they were leaning into each other, intimate, almost like lovers. Ngozi's hands tightened around her files. She had been there when Mrs. Han flirted shamelessly, but seeing the picture made her stomach twist. Around her, colleagues exchanged knowing glances. A few even chuckled when Min-jae entered the office. For the first time, his confident stride faltered. He walked straight to his office without a word. Later that evening, Ngozi found him at home, sitting quietly in the dim light. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled, his phone still open on the article. He didn't look like the unshakable lawyer she knew. He looked wounded. When she stepped closer, he finally spoke, his voice low. Do you believe them, Ngozi? His eyes searched hers, uncertain. Do you think I could betray you like this? That I'd ever, his words trailed off, heavy with unspoken fear. Ngozi blinked, taken aback. She had never seen him so vulnerable. Min-jae, she whispered, sitting beside him. I know you cannot do it. That woman planned this. She's trying to ruin you. He turned to her, sadness lingering in his gaze. Still it hurts, he confessed softly. Not because of the gossip, but because for a moment today I wondered if you looked at that photo and doubted me. If you'd think I was just another man who can't be trusted. Ngozi's chest tightened. She reached for his hand gently. I didn't doubt you, she said firmly. Not even for a second. You've never given me a reason to. And you never will. Min-jae exhaled slowly, as if her words lifted a weight off his shoulders. His lips curved into a faint, weary smile. Thank you, he murmured. That's all I needed to hear. And in that quiet moment, their bond deepened, not through victories in court, but through trust in each other, stronger than any scandal. The next morning, Ngozi walked into the office with fire in her eyes. She wasn't going to let Mrs. Han destroy Min-jae's career, or their fragile but growing bond. Let them laugh, she whispered to herself, pulling out her laptop. We'll show them the truth. Over the next few days, she worked tirelessly. She reviewed every cafe security camera, checked phone records, and even contacted the waiter who had served Mrs. Han and Min-jae that day. Piece by piece, the truth came together. Mrs. Han had orchestrated the scene, deliberately leaning into Min-jae and bribing the photographer to take the shot at the exact angle that would make it look scandalous. Late one night, Ngozi walked into Min-jae's office, exhausted but triumphant, holding a thick folder. I've got it, she said, dropping it on his desk. He looked up, startled. What is this? Proof, she smiled faintly. Everything we need to clear your name. For a moment, Min-jae just stared at her, pride shining through his fatigue. Then he stood, walked around the desk, and whispered, Ngozi, you don't know how much this means to me. The next week in court was electric. The opposition smirked, certain they had the upper hand. But when Ngozi rose to present the evidence, her voice was steady, confident, unstoppable. She showed the CCTV clips, the altered timestamps, the bribed photographer's statement. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. Mrs. Han's smug smile crumbled. By the end of the trial, the judge's gavel struck with finality. Case dismissed. All allegations against attorney Min-jae are baseless and malicious. The courtroom erupted. Colleagues who once whispered now looked on in stunned silence. Reporters crowded forward, shoving microphones into Min Jae's face. Attorney Min Jae, do you have a statement about the adultery scandal? Was the photo real? Are you secretly involved with Mrs. Han? Is it true your career is over? The air buzzed with tension, but Min Jae didn't flinch. He raised his hand calmly and said, with a steady voice that carried over the chaos, I have nothing to say about fabricated lies. I trust my lawyer to handle this. He glanced at Ngozi, standing just behind him, and for the first time in her life, Ngozi felt the crowd's eyes shift to her, not as an assistant, not as a woman in the background, but as the lawyer he trusted above all others. Her chest swelled with pride. The reporters, stunned by his words, immediately redirected their questions toward her. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and replied with poise. All I will say is this, truth always prevails. And today, the truth was clear for everyone to see. The press erupted again, but Min Jae gently guided her through the crowd, shielding her from the crush of cameras. By the time they got into the car, the noise of the outside world faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the engine. Min Jae leaned back in his seat, letting out a sigh of relief. Then he turned to her, his eyes soft and full of gratitude. You don't know how proud I am of you, he said quietly. You didn't just save my career, Ngozi. You reminded me why I became a lawyer in the first place, to fight for truth. And you did it better than anyone I've ever seen. Ngozi's heart raced at his words. She tried to laugh it off, but inside, she felt her walls slowly crumbling. This wasn't just a secret marriage anymore. This was something real, something lasting. That evening, after the tension of the courtroom finally lifted, Min Jae took Ngozi to a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the Seoul skyline. Ngozi looked more radiant than the city lights, her laughter free, her shoulders no longer burdened by the case. Min Jae leaned back in his chair, watching her with quiet admiration before finally speaking. You've done so much for me, he said, his voice low and steady. Now, I think it's my turn. I have to go and see your family to thank them for raising such a strong, incredible woman. Ngozi's smile faltered for a moment, replaced by a mischievous glint in her eyes. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her palm. In Nigeria, she began slowly, teasing him. If you truly want to marry me properly, you'll have to go to my hometown, kneel before my family, and beg them to give me to you. That's our tradition. Min Jae's eyes widened slightly at her boldness, then softened into a smile that reached his soul. Then I'll do it, he said without hesitation. If that's what it takes to prove I want you, not just here, not just now, but forever, then I'll kneel before them gladly. Armed with that calm seriousness she had come to know too well. At first, she laughed it off, shaking her head. Min Jae, you don't understand. Nigerians take tradition seriously. It's not some drama script where you just show up. But he didn't laugh. His dark eyes held her firmly, filled with quiet resolve. I know, he said softly. That's why I'm doing it. You said if I want to marry you properly, I have to go to your hometown, kneel, and beg your family. So I will. Her heart stumbled in her chest. She stared at him, searching for a trace of playfulness, but there was none. He was dead serious. Wait, she whispered, her voice trembling. You mean it? You'd really fly all the way to Nigeria for me? Min Jae gave a small smile, reaching across the table to take her hand. Ngozi, I'd fly across the world 100 times if it meant holding your heart for real. The words sank deep, shattering the last bit of wall she had been clinging to. She wanted to protest, to tell him it was too much, too soon. But instead, tears of disbelief pricked her eyes. She couldn't deny it anymore. This man was real, and so were his feelings. She looked away, embarrassed, whispering almost to herself, What am I going to do with you, Min Jae? For the first time, she wasn't just the Nigerian lawyer fighting for others. She was a woman whose heart was slowly, helplessly being captured. Ngozi still couldn't believe it. For days after that dinner, she kept replaying his words in her mind. I will go to Nigeria. I will meet your family. I will do it properly. At first, she laughed it off, thinking it was just another one of his charming ways of teasing her. But now he was in her apartment, suitcase open on the floor, folding shirts with precision like he was preparing for a business trip. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, trying to mask her nervousness. Min-jae, are you seriously packing? Without looking up, he replied calmly, of course. You said if I want to marry you the proper way, I have to beg your family in Nigeria. I'm not a man who breaks traditions. Ngozi's heart skipped. His words felt heavier now, not playful at all. She walked into the room, trying to joke her way out of the tension. You do realize my mother will ask you to kneel on the ground, right? She won't go easy on you. He finally looked up, his dark eyes soft but unwavering. Then I'll kneel. For you, Ngozi, I'll do it all. Her chest tightened, warmth flooding through her. She had never seen him so serious. The Lagos sun was bright and relentless as Ngozi stepped out of the airport, her suitcase in one hand, Min-jae's arm gently guiding him through the crowd. She couldn't help but grin, a mix of pride and nervousness bubbling inside her. This was her world, her family, and Min-jae was about to step right into it. Min-jae, on the other hand, looked slightly overwhelmed. The bustling airport, the excited families, the children running past them, it was all a sensory overload for the usually composed lawyer. Yet he stayed close to Ngozi, letting her lead him, trusting her entirely. Don't worry, she whispered, sensing his hesitation. Just smile and be yourself. That's all they'll ever need to know. Her mother was the first to spot them, waving enthusiastically, her colorful Ankara dress and Geli headrap radiant under the sun. Ngozi ran forward and embraced her tightly, while her mother laughed joyfully, eyes shining. Ngozi, finally. And you brought him, she exclaimed, turning to Min-jae. Min-jae stepped forward, bowing slightly in respect. Ma'am, it's an honor to meet you, he said politely. Her mother's eyes studied him, a mixture of curiosity and amusement before breaking into a warm smile. Ah, my daughter has chosen well. From there, the family caravanned them to the compound house, laughter and chatter filling the air. Children ran up to poke Min-jae's suit jacket, questioning him about everything from Korean food to football. He laughed awkwardly, trying to answer, while Ngozi shook her head with amusement, watching him navigate her lively family with patience. Later, seated around the large wooden table, Min-jae attempted to eat jollof rice and suya for the first time. His careful bites and surprised expressions drew laughter from everyone, and even Ngozi couldn't hide her giggles. You'll get used to it, she teased softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. As the evening settled, Ngozi stepped aside by a window, watching her family bond with Min-jae. Her heart swelled. This man who had been her crush, her protector, her secret husband, was here in her world, making it his own. She realized that no matter what traditions or laughter came their way, this was the start of something real. And for the first time, she felt that the future she had imagined with him wasn't just a dream, it was becoming reality. The next morning, Ngozi's family gathered in the courtyard of their compound. The sun reflected off the bright Ankara fabrics and the colorful walls, creating a festive atmosphere. Min-jae stood nervously. Ngozi's mother clutched her hands together, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Are you ready, son? She asked. I am, Min-jae replied, bowing slightly. He looked at Ngozi with a deep, steady gaze. Ngozi, I promise to love and protect you always. Today, I kneel before your family to ask for your hand in marriage, properly, as your tradition requires. The Nigerian woman gasped softly, a blush rising to her cheeks. Her mother and siblings cheered, some holding their hands over their mouths to hide laughter at the sight of the usually composed Min-jae kneeling. Slowly, with a mixture of reverence and tenderness, he knelt on the mat, presenting a simple but elegant ring. Ngozi, will you marry me? Tears formed in her eyes, and for a moment, she could barely speak. Then, with a smile that radiated pure joy, she nodded. Yes, Min-jae. Yes. The family erupted into celebration, clapping, cheering, and even playful teasing. Her younger siblings rushed to hug her, while Min-jae stood, finally holding her close. Later that evening, the couple sat on the balcony of Ngozi's family home, the Lagos sunset painting the sky in pinks and oranges. Min-jae wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. You know, he whispered, I didn't think I'd ever understand how meaningful this tradition was. But now, seeing you, your family, this place, I understand. I'm so happy I did this properly." Ngozi leaned her head on his shoulder, laughing softly. "And I'm happy you survived it," she teased, nudging him gently. "My family isn't easy to impress." He chuckled, kissing the top of her head. "They loved you long before they even met me. I just had to prove I was worthy of you." Ngozi smiled, thinking of the long journey. From a scholarship student in Korea to a fearless lawyer, from a contract marriage to a man who truly loved her. Her heart swelled with gratitude, love, and hope for the future. And as the night settled over Lagos, they sat together, hands entwined, knowing this was only the beginning of their happily ever after. Months later, Ngozi and Minjae returned to Korea. Hand in hand, their hearts full of hope and love. The journey back was quieter this time, less nervous, more certain. They had faced tradition, family, and fate together, and now nothing could shake their bond. Back in Seoul, they opened their own law firm, a space dedicated to fighting for women's rights and freedom. The office was modern and bright, with shelves of law books and posters that read, "Justice for every woman." Their team was passionate and united, inspired by the story of Ngozi's courage and Minjae's unwavering support. Every morning, they worked side by side, strategizing cases, mentoring young lawyers, and empowering women who had once felt voiceless. Minjae would glance at Ngozi across the office, a soft smile tugging at his lips, remembering how far they had come. Ngozi, in turn, would return the gaze, her heart swelling with pride, not just for their success, but for the man who had loved her quietly for years and had never let go. Even the small moments carried meaning. Coffee breaks became their chance to laugh about office antics. Late nights over case files became their moments of closeness, and every victory in court reminded them why they had started this journey together. Ngozi sometimes reflected on her past, the struggles, the bullying, the fight for justice. And now, side by side with Minjae, she realized that every hardship had led her to this life, a life where love and purpose intertwined. Together, they weren't just lawyers. They were a force for change, a symbol of hope, and proof that when love and determination meet, dreams can become reality. And so, in their shared law firm in Korea, Ngozi and Minjae continued their mission, fighting for freedom, protecting the vulnerable, and building a life rooted in love, respect, and unwavering partnership. Life doesn't always follow the path we plan, and love doesn't always come when we expect it. Sometimes, the heart we least notice holds the deepest truth. Ngozi and Minjae's story reminds us that patience, courage, and believing in fate can turn even the most unexpected beginnings into a love worth fighting for. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this story. I would appreciate hearing your thoughts. If you love this story, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more stories. And also let us know where you are watching from. This is Afro Love Diaries, where every heartbeat tells a story.